Hello friends. So I'll be talking on this topic, drugs in intensive care, which is a part of training tutorials. So today I'll be talking on propofol. It's a very brief talk, which would be useful for people taking exams, where we would keep this drug in the viva and the trainees would be asked to talk about this drug. So I'll just take you through the brief narrative on this particular drug. So propofol is 2,6-diisopropyl phenol. So basically it has a phenol ring and it has two chains. So it has this propyl chains, and altering the side chain of this molecule has a bearing on the induction, potency and recovery characteristics of this drug. So any changes in this side chain of the propyl phenol has its influence on the induction ability, potency, and recovery characteristics. So the mechanism of action of propofol is mainly on these GABA receptors. So it has an inhibitory neurotransmitter. GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it potentiates the inhibitory neurotransmission of this GABA receptors by binding to the GABA receptors in the postsynaptic membrane. So what it does is propofol, basically this GABA receptor, it keeps the channels open for more chloride to enter and act for a prolonged period of time. And that leads to hyperpolarization of these cells, and this inhibits the activation of the action potential. So this is in brief the mechanism of action. So the key aspect is it acts on the GABA receptor and it potentiates the inhibitory neurotransmission by keeping these channels open for a long time, and it prevents the dissociation of these receptors from the cell membrane and leads to hyperpolarization of the membrane, and it prevents the action potential to be generated. So that is in brief the way the whole propofol acts. So the propofol, which is white in color, it is oil in water emulsion. It contains all the organic matter. It contains soybean oil, it contains glycerol and egg lecithin. Because it has an organic elements in it, the risk of infection when someone is handling this propofol is high. So the strict antiseptic measures have to be used with regards to any personnel who's using propofol. So while choosing propofol, care has to be taken that strict aseptic precautions are used when the ampule is opened and when the usage of this propofol happens. And propofol, the site of administration, it can cause a lot of pain at the injection site. So especially when large doses are used, so it is usually reconstituted with 2 ml 1% lidocaine with 18 ml propofol to prevent the pain at the site of injection. So otherwise, if we would give it without this lidocaine, it can cause pain. And most of the anesthesiologist trainees who would be listening to this would know when we are giving propofol, patient complains of severe pain at the infusion site. So it is desirable that when we are using a bigger dose, 2 ml lidocaine is reconstituted with 18 ml propofol and then infusion given. And it is advisable that propofol, once the vial is opened, it is to be used within 6 hours and not to be kept outside and used later on because of the risk of infection, because it contains a lot of organic elements in it. And so some of the propofol currently available comes reconstituted with 0.005% to sodium editate, disodium editate, or sodium metabisulfite to reduce the risk of infection when using this propofol. So with regards to the dosage, absorption and distribution, the induction dose. So for most anesthetic drugs, one would tend to remember the induction dose, the sedative dose and the maintenance dose. The induction dose is 1 to 1.25 milligram per kg. So it's easy to remember. So if it is a 60 kg individual, you would use 60 milligrams. So the maintenance dose is 50 to 200 micrograms per kg per minute. So just for the ease of our understanding, that comes to, for a 65 kg individual, it comes to 3.25 milligram to 13 milligram per minute if you are using it as a anesthetic maintenance dose of propofol. So if it is for the sedative purpose, it is half of this, which is 25 to 100 micrograms per kg. So 50 to 100 would be the anesthetic dose to completely anesthetize. For sedation, it is 25 to 100 micrograms, which comes to around 1.6 milligram to 6.5 milligram per minute for a 65 kg individual. So the distribution half-life, so as most of the listeners would know, propofol, the key advantage of using propofol is the recovery from the sedation or anesthesia is very rapid. As soon as we stop the drug, the recovery happens and the awakening state happens in a very quick way, because the distribution half-life is only 2 to 8 minutes and the recovery is very rapid. And when we are using induction dose, most of you would be aware that in ICU we are very cautious whilst using propofol because it can have deleterious effects with hemodynamic stability. So in elderly, it is desirable we use a lesser induction dose, and females tend to require higher dose of propofol for them to be induced. So this is in general about the dosing of propofol. So we'll talk about biotransformation and excretion. So propofol gets conjugated in the liver. So it undergoes conjugation to cause inactive metabolites, and these inactive metabolites finally get excreted in the kidney, excreted from the kidney. And the propofol clearance is greater than the hepatic blood flow. So it very rapidly gets cleared, which means the clearance from the liver itself is very rapid. It is more than the hepatic blood flow. Because of its very fast clearance, even from the liver, the recovery is very rapid. So the predominant metabolism happens in the liver by conjugation, inactive metabolites getting excreted in the from the kidney, and the clearance from the liver also is much higher than the hepatic blood flow. That's why the recovery is very rapid. So when we give long-term propofol infusion, especially in children, it can cause lipemia. So there is an increase in the lipids in the blood, and it can lead to metabolic acidosis and death, which we call as propofol syndrome. That is something for trainees to keep in mind, especially when we are using propofol as an infusion for a longer time in children. So we'll very briefly talk on what are the effects of propofol on the organ system. On the cardiovascular, so most of trainees would agree that it can cause hypotension. And that's why we are extremely cautious in using propofol in ICU, because in ICU, our understanding is most of these patients are hemodynamically unstable and with a lot of comorbid problems with cardiac comorbid. So hypotension is a dreaded complication of propofol. And this hypotension is more profound when larger doses are used or when rapid infusion or rapid injection of propofol is given, and more so in elderly. And we understand in ICU predominantly we are, significant proportion of the patients are elderly. That's why we are very guarded in using liberal propofol in ICU. So propofol is ideal for young trauma patients in ICU, but for an elderly, we have to be extremely cautious because of the hypotension that sets in. And at the cardiovascular level, it reduces the myocardial contractility, and it reduces the systemic vascular resistance, and it reduces the preload. So this is something which is very important, because in ICU, we are always dealing with the volume status, especially when patient is low on volume, preload. So what it means is the hemodynamic disturbance will become even more profound. And this can lead to reflex bradycardia, and asystole can happen. So it is extremely important in ICU, where if you're dealing with a hypovolemic patient, the effect of propofol will be very profound in causing hypotension, and it can lead to cardiac arrest also if you are not taking care of the volume. So that is something which we need to bear in mind. And if someone has an LV dysfunction, it has a profound effect in reducing the cardiac output. So these are some things which we have to be extremely careful. That's why we wouldn't ordinarily use propofol as a routine in elderly patients with cardiac comorbids in ICU. Because of this factor, it can reduce the cardiac output. And if preload is an issue, it can cause cardiac arrest and it can cause profound hypotension. So one has to be very cautious. So desirably, I would use propofol in ICU in a young trauma patient who would be able to sustain better, rather in an elderly crumbly individual with a cardiac comorbid. I would be very cautious in using liberal propofol. And another important effect of propofol is the reflex carotid reflex to as a response to the hypotension is impaired. So it impairs the baroreceptor reflex to the hypotension, which normally typically happens. It can abolish this. So that is also another dangerous aspect of propofol, because it abolishes the baroreceptor mediated reflex to the hypotension. So that is another important thing. And they found that coronary sinus lactate increases with the use of propofol, which again indicates there is a mismatch between the myocardial oxygen demand and consumption when propofol is used because of the reduced myocardial contractility. So this is something that has been identified. So with regards to respiratory, so propofol, it inhibits the hypoxic ventilatory drive. So as you know, our whole ventilatory drive comes from the brainstem. So propofol has an, because it depresses your central nervous system, so it can inhibit the hypoxic ventilatory drive. The good thing about propofol is it abolishes the upper airway reflexes. It depresses the upper airway. That's why it's a good agent if you're intubating and you would not want to use relaxant. So laryngoscopy can be done with deepening the patient with propofol because it takes away the upper airway reflexes. That's why you would see many anesthesiologists, if they are hesitant to give relaxant, they would give propofol in liberal doses, take them deep, and then laryngoscopy could be performed. So it does depress upper airway reflexes. And propofol, like any other opioids, it can cause histamine release in the airway, but this histamine release is negligible, and this is not a contraindication for its usage in asthma or COPD. So it is safe, but there is some histamine release that occurs with the use of propofol. So with regards to the effects of propofol on the cerebrum or the brain, it does reduce the cerebral blood flow. And because of its ability to reduce the cerebral blood flow, it does reduce the intracranial pressure. It also reduces the intraocular pressure, and it has an anti-emetic effect. So, and this anti-emetic effect is found to be at a blood levels of 200 nanograms per ml. And when propofol is used as an induction, so it has an antipruritic effect also. When it is used as an induction, it has an ability at the induction doses, it can cause hiccups and it can cause muscle twitching and it can cause opisthotonus. So that is something one needs to bear in mind, especially when it is being used as an induction dose. But we have used this, we don't see this very often. Hiccups is sometimes I've seen when I used to do anesthesia during my training. Twitchings occasionally you would see, but I have not seen opisthotonus or anything of that sort. So these are some of the things that one needs to keep in mind. So the drug interactions, it has a synergistic effect with the opioids, with fentanyl or alfentanil. It has a good synergistic effect, and it has a good synergism with midazolam. So some school of thoughts propose use of small dose of midazolam along with propofol to have an enhanced activity of propofol, but there is no good evidence to say that midazolam using with propofol has a much more significant induction effect, but that is definitely shown to have some synergistic effect. So in brief, so it's a very brief narrative. So that's about the propofols. I spoke about mechanism of action, the dosing of propofol, and the biotransformation of the propofol excretion and its effect on the organs. So thank you very much. So I would end with this quote. So behind strong persons, there is a story that gave them no choice by Paul Coelho. So thank you all.